My room only has one bed. The nervous innkeeper stammered to the black woman, expecting her to turn away like all the others before her, but she replied with unsettling calm, "That's perfect." The dusty frontier town watches through shuttered windows as the well-dressed stranger dismounts her horse, their whispered slurs and cold stares promising she'll be gone by sunrise, another uppity outsider who doesn't know her place. But the giant cowboy observing from the saloon steps sees something different in her unwavering composure, something that draws him toward a choice that will define them both. What neither realizes is that her single room holds the key to exposing a corruption scheme that could destroy every family in town, and time is running out before the real power behind the conspiracy arrives to claim everything. Will she survive long enough to reveal the truth, or will the town's hatred silence her forever? Before we continue, comment where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will publish a story there. The stagecoach wheels kicked up clouds of dust as they rolled to a stop in front of Peace Bluff's Main Street. Anna Sinclair stepped down onto the wooden platform, her worn leather boots making solid contact with the sun-baked planks. She adjusted her dark traveling dress and lifted her single bag with practiced ease. Conversation stopped. Window shutters cracked open, just enough for curious eyes to peer through. A group of men outside the saloon turned to stare, their faces hardening with each passing second. Anna walked toward the general store, her back straight and head high. The proprietor, a thin Chinese woman named Margaret Chen, quickly flipped her sign to "closed" and retreated into the shadows behind her counter. Sheriff Morton Graves emerged from his office, his silver badge catching the afternoon sun. He was a tall man with graying hair and eyes that missed nothing in his territory. His boots thudded against the wooden walkway as he approached Anna. "You lost, miss?" Anna met his gaze without flinching. "I have business in Peace Bluff." "What kind of business would that be?" "Personal business." Graves circled her slowly like a predator sizing up prey. "This town doesn't get many visitors of your sort. Might be more comfortable in the next county over." "I'll be staying here." The sheriff's jaw tightened. He had dealt with troublemakers before, but something in this woman's calm certainty unsettled him. "We'll see about that." Anna continued down the street, passing the blacksmith shop where work had stopped completely. 3 men stood in the doorway, their faces twisted with disgust. One spat into the dirt as she walked by. The first boarding house turned her away before she could finish asking about a room. The second claimed they were full, despite the vacancy sign hanging crooked in the window. The third simply slammed the door in her face. From across the street, Ezekiel Tanner watched the scene unfold. He was a large man, broad-shouldered and weathered by years of hard work under the desert sun. Unlike the others, his expression showed curiosity rather than hostility. Something about the woman's unwavering composure intrigued him. Anna reached the final establishment on the street. Whitley's Inn sat at the end of the row, its faded paint and sagging porch suggesting better days had passed it by. She pushed through the front door, causing a small bell to chime. Thomas Whitley looked up from his ledger, his thin face immediately creasing with worry. He was a nervous man who survived in Peace Bluff by avoiding conflict and following the unspoken rules that kept Sheriff Graves satisfied. "We don't have any rooms available." Anna gestured toward the key rack behind him. 7 keys hung on their hooks. Those suggest otherwise. Whitley's hands trembled as he fumbled with his papers. "Those rooms are reserved." "For whom?" "For guests who might arrive later." Anna placed 2 silver coins on the counter. "I need lodging for the night." The innkeeper stared at the money, clearly torn between profit and social pressure. Through the window, he could see townspeople gathering outside, waiting to see how this confrontation would end. "Look, I wish I could help you. But even if I had space, my room only has 1 bed." Anna's response came without hesitation. "That's perfect." The words hung in the air like smoke from a gunshot. Whitley's mouth opened and closed without sound. Outside, Zeke straightened up from where he had been leaning against a post. Perfect. One bed suits my needs exactly. Whitley looked toward the window where Sheriff Graves stood, watching with crossed arms. The lawman's expression promised consequences for anyone who stepped out of line. But the silver coins gleamed on the counter, and business had been slow. Room 7. Upstairs. End of the hall. Anna pocketed the key and climbed the narrow staircase, her footsteps echoing through the quiet building. Behind her, she could hear Whitley muttering prayers under his breath. The room was small and sparse. A single bed dominated the space, flanked by a washstand and one rickety chair. Sunlight filtered through a dust-covered window that looked out over the town's main street. Anna set her bag on the bed and began examining the room methodically. She ran her fingers along the walls, checking the floorboards and testing the window frame. In the corner near the washstand, one board creaked differently than the others. She knelt and worked the board loose with her fingernails. Underneath, wrapped in oiled cloth, lay a bundle of papers. Her heart raced as she unfolded the first document. Isaiah Fletcher's handwriting filled the page, and the words made her breath catch. Outside, Zeke made his decision. He crossed the street and entered the inn, nodding to Whitley as he climbed the stairs. He knocked softly on room 7's door. Anna opened it cautiously, still clutched in her hand. "Wanted to make sure you got settled all right." She studied his face, searching for signs of deception or threat. "That's kind of you. Name's Zeke. Ezekiel Tanner. Anna Sinclair. Mind if I ask what brings you to Peace Bluff? It's not exactly a destination most people choose." Anna glanced at the papers in her hand, then back at Zeke's weathered face. Something in his eyes suggested he might be different from the others. "I'm here. About land." "What kind of land?" "The kind that belongs to me." Zeke stepped into the small room, his large frame making the space feel even more cramped. Anna hesitated for a moment, then closed the door behind him. The papers in her hand rustled as she moved to the single bed. "Land that belongs to you?" Anna spread the documents across the faded quilt. Her father's handwriting covered page after page, detailing property boundaries, water rights, and legal descriptions. The largest document bore an official territorial seal. 500 acres, prime grazing land with water access. She pointed to a hand-drawn map. "My father, Isaiah Fletcher, filed the claim legally 3 years ago." Zeke leaned closer, studying the papers. His expression grew serious as he recognized landmarks and boundary markers. "This is some of the best land in the territory. Sheriff Graves sold parcels of this same area to the Morrison family last month. He sold what wasn't his to sell." "How do you know Isaiah Fletcher was your father?" Anna lifted a smaller piece of paper from the bundle. A birth certificate, worn but legible, listed Isaiah Fletcher as father and Mary Sinclair as mother. "My mother took her maiden name when she left the territory. She died last winter in Chicago." Zeke sat heavily in the rickety chair. "Isaiah Fletcher disappeared 6 months ago. Folks said he just moved on, couldn't handle frontier life." "He didn't move on. He's buried somewhere on his own land." The weight of her words settled between them. Zeke rubbed his jaw, processing the implications. If Anna was right, Sheriff Graves hadn't just committed land fraud. He had committed murder. "You have proof of that." Anna showed him another letter, this one written in shaky handwriting. He knew someone was watching him, knew his life was in danger. He wrote this the night before he disappeared. Zeke read the final letter Isaiah had hidden beneath the floorboards. The dead man had suspected Sheriff Graves of running a land scheme, selling claims to multiple buyers and pocketing the profits. He had planned to file complaints with territorial authorities. Why hide the papers here? He stayed in this room the week before he died. Must have known he was running out of time. Anna gathered the documents into neat stacks on the bed. Legal deeds, survey maps, justice. There's a difference. Zeke studied her face. Most people would want blood for blood, but Anna's expression held something else. Determination mixed with grief, but no hatred. What kind of justice are you talking about? The legal kind. I spent 5 years working for Attorney Harrison in Chicago, filed papers, researched cases, memorized territorial law. I know exactly how land claims work. Anna pulled a leather portfolio from her traveling bag. Inside were more documents, these ones bearing Chicago postmarks, letters to territorial officials, copies of filing procedures, and detailed legal precedents. You're a lawyer? I'm not licensed to practice, but I know the law better than most men with degrees. Zeke picked up one of the survey maps. The land in question stretched from the river bend all the way to the mesa, encompassing nearly every valuable acre in the area. If Graves sold this land multiple times, he's defrauded half the county. Exactly. And when word gets out, everyone who bought land from him will demand their money back. Money the sheriff doesn't have. Anna nodded grimly, which means he'll do anything to keep this quiet. As if summoned by their conversation, heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. 3 sharp knocks rattled the door. Miss Sinclair, Sheriff Graves, need to speak with you. Anna quickly gathered the papers and shoved them under the mattress. Zeke moved toward the window, but Anna caught his arm. Stay. I need a witness. She opened the door to find Sheriff Graves flanked by Deputy Morrison. The younger man looked uncomfortable, but Graves radiated authority and barely contained anger. Heard you've been asking questions about land ownership. I've been reviewing my property. Your property? Graves stepped into the room uninvited. Far as I know, you don't own so much as the clothes on your back. Anna met his stare without flinching. I inherited land from my father. Who might that be? Isaiah Fletcher. Deputy Morrison shifted nervously. Graves' jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but Anna caught the reaction. Never heard of him. Strange. He filed claims through your office. Lot of drifters come and go, can't remember them all. Zeke cleared his throat. I remember Isaiah. Good man. Worked hard on his claim until he disappeared. Graves turned his attention to the big cowboy. Funny thing about people who disappear, Tanner. Sometimes they leave debts behind. Sometimes those debts get collected from people who associate with them. The threat hung heavy in the small room. Deputy Morrison looked increasingly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. I have legal documentation of my inheritance. Documentation can be forged. Happens all the time with folks trying to claim land that isn't rightfully theirs. Anna stepped closer to the sheriff. Despite the difference in their size, she seemed to grow taller. Then I suppose we'll let territorial authorities determine what's legal and what isn't. Territorial authorities are busy men. Takes months for them to investigate claims. Lots can happen in months. I'm a patient woman. Graves studied her face, searching for signs of fear or uncertainty. Finding none, he stepped back toward the door. This is a peaceful town, Miss Sinclair. We like to keep it that way. People who disturb the peace sometimes find themselves unwelcome. Are you threatening me, Sheriff? I'm offering friendly advice. Take it. The 2 lawmen left, their boots heavy on the wooden stairs. Anna waited until she heard the inn's front door close before retrieving the papers from under the mattress. Zeke watched her hands shake slightly as she smoothed out the documents. You're scared. Terrified, but fear won't bring my father justice. That evening, Anna sat cross-legged on the single bed, organizing her father's documents by date and legal importance. Zeke returned after dark, carrying a tray of food from the saloon and news from around town. Talked to some folks. 3 families bought land from Graves in the past year. All of it overlaps with your father's original claim. Anna looked up from a survey map she had been studying. 3 families means 3 times the filing fees. Graves collected payment from each buyer. The Hendersons put their life savings into that land. Same with the Kowalskis and the Martinez family. They're victims too. When this comes out, they'll lose everything unless we can prove fraud. Zeke set the food aside and pulled out a folded paper from his jacket. Found this nailed to the courthouse door, thought you should see it? Anna unfolded the notice. Sheriff Graves had posted a public announcement declaring all unclaimed land in the territory subject to immediate auction. The sale was scheduled for the end of the week. He's trying to legitimize the theft, make it look legal after the fact. Can he do that? Anna spread out her father's correspondence with territorial officials. The papers showed Isaiah had followed every legal requirement for his land claim. Filing fees paid, boundaries surveyed, improvement requirements met. Not if I can prove prior ownership. But I need more than my father's papers. What kind of proof? Witnesses. People who saw Isaiah working the land, making improvements, establishing residence. Zeke rubbed his stubbled chin. Old Pete Miller lives near that area. He might have seen Isaiah building his cabin. Will he talk to me? He might talk to me. The next morning, Anna transformed her small room into a research center. She pushed the single bed against the wall and used the surface as a document workspace. Legal papers covered the quilt in organized stacks. Survey maps hung from nails she had hammered into the wooden walls. Gestured to the chair. Margaret entered quickly and closed the door behind her. I heard you asking about land ownership. You know something about Sheriff Graves' land sales? Margaret nodded reluctantly. He sold my family a plot near the river last spring. Said it was prime farming land, perfect for growing vegetables. What happened? The Martinez family showed up with their own deed to the same property. Both families had paid Graves the full amount. Anna pulled out a clean sheet of paper and began taking notes. Did you keep your receipt? Margaret produced a crumpled paper from her apron pocket. The handwriting matched other documents Anna had seen from the sheriff's office. This proves Graves was selling the same land multiple times. Will you testify to that? Testify. Where? When territorial authorities investigate the fraud, fear flickered across Margaret's face. Sheriff Graves controls this town. People who cross him have bad things happen. What kind of bad things? Accidents? Fires? Sudden tax problems that force families to sell their businesses. Anna understood the woman's fear, but she also saw an opportunity. How many other families has this happened to? At least 6 that I know of. Maybe more. Would they talk to me if they knew they weren't alone? Margaret considered this. Maybe, if they thought there was real hope for justice. That afternoon, Zeke returned with Pete Miller in tow. The old rancher was weathered and cautious, but he agreed to speak privately in Anna's room. I seen Isaiah Fletcher working that land regular-like. Built himself a decent cabin, dug a well, cleared fields for planting. Anna wrote down every detail. When was the last time you saw him? 6 months back. Was riding fence line and saw smoke coming from his property. Figured he was burning brush, but when I rode over to check, cabin was gone. Just ashes and Isaiah nowhere to be found. Did you report it to Sheriff Graves? Pete snorted. Graves said Isaiah probably burned it himself and moved on. Said some folks ain't cut out for frontier life. But you didn't believe that? Isaiah Fletcher was tougher than leather. Wouldn't give up on good land without a fight. Anna added Pete's account to her growing file of evidence. Each testimony strengthened her case, but she needed more to challenge Graves directly. Word of Anna's investigation spread quietly through town. By evening, 2 more families had visited her room. The Kowalskis brought their land deed, which overlapped with both Margaret's property and Anna's father's original claim. The Henderson family produced receipts showing they had paid Graves twice as much as the standard filing fee. He told us the extra money was for expedited processing, Mrs. Henderson explained. Said it would guarantee our claim got approved quickly. Anna realized Graves had been targeting families who were desperate, or unfamiliar with proper legal procedures. Immigrants, widows, and newcomers who wouldn't know to question his authority. There's something else, Mr. Henderson added reluctantly. Graves mentioned he had backing from important people. Said anyone who challenged the land sales would be dealing with more than just local law. What kind of backing? Railroad money. Big Eastern investors who want to see the territory developed quickly. Anna felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. The land fraud wasn't just about Sheriff Graves getting rich. It was part of a bigger scheme involving outside interests. Late that night, she spread all the evidence across her bed. Land deeds, receipts, witness statements, and her father's original documentation created a clear picture of systematic fraud. But she also saw the scope of what she was challenging. Zeke studied her face in the lamplight. You're thinking about backing down? I'm thinking about how many people will get hurt if I don't succeed. And how many are getting hurt right now while Graves continues the fraud? Anna looked at the documents covering her single bed. Each paper represented a family's dreams, their life savings, their hope for a better future. Her father had died trying to protect his rightful claim. Now she had the chance to finish what he started. Tomorrow we make this public. Dawn broke over Peace Bluff as Anna prepared for the most dangerous day of her mission. She organized her evidence into a leather portfolio, keeping the most critical documents close to her body. The single bed that had served as her workspace now looked bare, stripped of the papers that could bring down Sheriff Graves. Zeke arrived early with troubling news. Graves has been asking questions about you all morning, wants to know who you've been talking to. Let him ask. We have enough evidence to file formal complaints with territorial authorities. That could take weeks. Graves won't wait that long. Anna secured the portfolio under her traveling cloak. Then we make sure the whole town knows what he's been doing. Hard to silence an entire community. Their first stop was Margaret Chen's general store. Anna laid out copies of the fraudulent land deeds on the counter, while Margaret served morning customers. Word spread quickly as neighbors saw the damning evidence. Mrs. Patterson, the school teacher, examined a deed that overlapped with her own property. Sheriff Graves assured me this land had never been claimed. He told the same lie to at least 5 other families, Anna replied. The store filled with concerned townspeople as news of the land fraud spread. Anna methodically presented evidence, showing how Graves had sold the same parcels multiple times while pocketing filing fees and bribes. Deputy Morrison appeared in the doorway, his face pale and conflicted. Anna noticed his hands shaking as he surveyed the crowd gathered around the evidence. Miss Sinclair, Sheriff Graves wants to see you immediately. Tell the sheriff I'm conducting legal business with fellow property owners. Morrison stepped closer, lowering his voice. Ma'am, you don't understand. He's planning to arrest you on charges of disturbing the peace. Anna met his eyes steadily. On what grounds? He'll manufacture grounds if he has to. The admission hung heavy in the store. Morrison had essentially confessed that his boss operated outside the law. Several townspeople heard the exchange, their expressions shifting from concern to alarm. Anna made a calculated decision. Deputy Morrison, you've seen the evidence here. As a sworn law officer, what's your professional opinion of these land deeds? Morrison looked at the papers spread across Margaret's counter. His jaw worked silently as he struggled with conflicting loyalties. Finally, he spoke carefully. These documents suggest irregularities in the filing process. Irregularities? Multiple sales of identical properties, duplicate receipt numbers, filing fees that don't match territorial standards. His official confirmation of the fraud sent murmurs through the gathered crowd. Anna saw several people exchange meaningful glances. The deputy had just undermined his own sheriff's credibility. Sheriff Graves burst through the store entrance, his face flushed with anger. He took in the scene at a glance. Anna surrounded by evidence, Morrison looking guilty, and half the town witnessing the confrontation. Morrison, I told you to arrest this woman for disturbing the peace. Sheriff, maybe we should discuss this privately. There's nothing to discuss. She's spreading lies and causing trouble. Anna stepped forward, her portfolio clutched tightly. Sheriff Graves, these people deserve to know they've been defrauded. Nobody's been defrauded. These folks bought land fair and square. Anna opened her portfolio and pulled out her father's original territorial filing. The official seal and survey marks were clearly visible to everyone in the store. Isaiah Fletcher filed a legal claim to 500 acres 3 years ago. You've sold parcels of that same land to multiple buyers. Graves snatched the document from her hands, studying it with barely concealed panic. This is forged. Your father never owned any land in this territory. Then you won't mind if territorial authorities examine the filing records. I mind plenty. You're not filing anything anywhere. The sheriff's mask of legal authority finally slipped completely. His admission that he would prevent her from accessing proper legal channels confirmed everything Anna had suspected. Margaret Chen stepped forward with unexpected courage. Sheriff, you sold my family land that belonged to someone else. We want our money back. Your money bought legitimate property. Then why did the Martinez family show up with a deed to the same plot? More voices joined the confrontation. The Henderson family pushed forward with their receipts. Pete Miller. Anna confirmed seeing Isaiah Fletcher's cabin before it mysteriously burned. Mrs. Patterson demanded explanations for the overlapping land claims. Sheriff Graves found himself surrounded by angry citizens, demanding answers he couldn't provide. His authority, built on intimidation and deception, crumbled under the weight of documented evidence. All of you need to calm down and go home. This matter will be resolved through proper channels. What proper channels? Anna challenged. You just said you'd prevent me from filing complaints with territorial officials. The contradiction trapped Graves in his own words. Deputy Morrison looked increasingly uncomfortable as the crowd grew hostile toward the sheriff. Anna sensed the momentum shifting in her favor. Sheriff Graves, if these land sales were legitimate, you should welcome an official investigation. There won't be any investigation, because there's nothing to investigate. Then you won't mind if I ride to the territorial capital and request a review of all recent land transactions. Graves stepped closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. You're not riding anywhere, Miss Sinclair. People who cause this kind of trouble in my town have a habit of disappearing. The threat, spoken in front of 24 witnesses, sealed Graves's fate. Even his supporters couldn't ignore such blatant intimidation. Deputy Morrison's hand moved instinctively toward his weapon, though whether to protect or arrest wasn't clear. Anna straightened to her full height. Are you threatening to murder me like you murdered my father? Gasps echoed through the store. The accusation, delivered with cold certainty, stunned everyone present. Graves's face went white as he realized how completely he had exposed himself. Your father was a drifter who couldn't handle frontier life. My father was Isaiah Fletcher, and you killed him to steal his land. Morrison stepped between them, his decision finally made. Sheriff, I think we should return to the office and discuss this situation calmly. But Graves was beyond calm discussion. He had built his power on fear and secrecy, and Anna had stripped away both. His empire of fraud was collapsing in front of the entire town. This isn't over, he snarled at Anna before storming out of the store. Anna turned to face the crowd of townspeople. It's over when justice is served. That evening, Anna returned to her room to find Deputy Morrison waiting in the hallway. His badge was missing from his vest, and his face carried the weight of difficult decisions. Sheriff Graves is planning something tonight. You need to know what you're really up against. Anna unlocked her door and gestured him inside. Morrison's hands shook as he pulled a stack of papers from his jacket. These are correspondence between Graves and his real boss, a railroad baron named Harrison Blackwood. Anna spread the letters across her bed, reading quickly. The documents revealed a conspiracy far larger than simple land fraud. Blackwood's railroad company planned to build a major junction through Peace Bluff, requiring the seizure of the entire town. Graves has been clearing out property owners for months. Every family he's defrauded, every questionable land sale, it's all part of Blackwood's plan. Anna studied a letter dated just 2 weeks earlier. Blackwood was growing impatient with the slow pace of land acquisition and threatened to replace Graves if results didn't improve quickly. When is Blackwood coming? Tomorrow morning. He's bringing federal marshals to finalize the seizure. Federal marshals? Morrison nodded grimly. Bought and paid for. They'll have paperwork declaring the entire area subject to eminent domain for railroad development. Anna felt the walls closing in around her mission. Fighting corrupt local officials was one thing, but challenging federal authority, backed by railroad money, was another level entirely. Why are you telling me this? Because I joined the law to protect people, not to help rich men steal their homes. Anna gathered her father's documents and began organizing them with Morrison's evidence. The combined papers painted a clear picture of systematic corruption reaching from local law enforcement to federal offices. We need to get this information to honest authorities before Blackwood arrives. There's no time. He'll be here at dawn with enough firepower to arrest anyone who opposes him. Anna stared at the evidence covering her single bed. Every document represented families who would lose everything if Blackwood's plan succeeded. Her father had died trying to stop this conspiracy, and now she faced the same overwhelming odds. Then we make our stand here, against federal marshals, against corruption, wherever it comes from. Anna spent the night preparing for the most important legal battle of her life. She organized evidence into irrefutable categories: fraudulent land sales, forged federal documents, and correspondence proving conspiracy between Graves and Blackwood. Zeke arrived before sunrise with news that Blackwood's train had pulled into the station. A dozen men in federal uniforms had disembarked, along with a well-dressed man carrying an expensive briefcase. Whole town's talking about it. Graves is strutting around like he owns the place. He thinks he does. Anna gathered her evidence and headed downstairs. Thomas Whitley cowered behind his desk as she passed through the lobby, but she barely noticed his fear. Her focus was entirely on the confrontation ahead. The main street filled with townspeople as word spread about the federal officials. Anna positioned herself in front of the courthouse steps, her evidence portfolio clearly visible to the growing crowd. Harrison Blackwood emerged from the sheriff's office, flanked by uniformed marshals. He was a tall, distinguished man with silver hair and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to getting his way through money and influence. Sheriff Graves pointed toward Anna. "That's the troublemaker I told you about. She's been spreading lies and inciting the townspeople." Blackwood studied Anna with calculating eyes. "Miss Sinclair, I presume. I'm Harrison Blackwood, representing the Transcontinental Railroad Development Company." "I know who you are, Mr. Blackwood." "Then you understand that this town sits on land crucial to our railroad expansion. These people will be fairly compensated for their relocation." Anna opened her portfolio and held up the fraudulent documents. These people already paid for their land. Sheriff Graves sold them property that wasn't his to sell. Local land disputes are unfortunate, but irrelevant to federal development projects. Local corruption is always relevant to federal oversight. Blackwood signaled to his marshals, who moved to flank Anna. The townspeople pressed closer, sensing the critical nature of the confrontation. "Miss Sinclair, you're interfering with legitimate federal business. I suggest you step aside." Anna stood her ground. "I'm exercising my right to petition for redress of grievances. These documents prove systematic fraud in local land sales." "Documents can be forged. Then let's examine them publicly." Anna raised her voice so the entire crowd could hear. She began reading from her father's original land filing, showing the official territorial seal and survey marks. Then, she displayed Sheriff Graves' fraudulent sales of the same property to multiple buyers. The townspeople murmured angrily as they realized the full scope of the deception. Even Blackwood's marshals looked uncomfortable as the evidence mounted. Furthermore, Anna continued, these letters prove Mr. Blackwood paid Sheriff Graves to defraud property owners in preparation for railroad seizure. She held up Morrison's evidence, reading excerpts that detailed the conspiracy. Blackwood's face darkened as his private correspondence became public record. Those are private business communications taken without authorization. Deputy Morrison stepped forward from the crowd. I seize them as evidence of criminal conspiracy. You have no authority here, Deputy. I have authority to investigate crimes in my jurisdiction. The confrontation reached a tipping point as Morrison officially challenged federal authority with local law enforcement backing. Anna saw her opportunity and pressed the advantage. Sheriff Graves murdered my father to steal his land for your railroad. Isaiah Fletcher died defending his legal property rights. The accusation sent shockwaves through the gathered crowd. Several townspeople who had remained neutral now moved to Anna's side. Graves finally snapped under the pressure. Your father was a troublemaker who got what he deserved. The confession exploded through the crowd like dynamite. Even Blackwood stared at his local partner in horrified disbelief. To murder in front of dozens of witnesses, Morrison drew his weapon and pointed it at Graves. Sheriff Morton Graves, you are under arrest for murder and conspiracy to commit fraud. Anna felt the tide turning as justice finally began to prevail. The sound of Morrison's weapon being drawn created instant silence on the main street. Sheriff Graves stared at his former deputy in shock, realizing his confession had sealed his fate. The crowd pressed closer, hungry for justice after months of corruption and intimidation. Harrison Blackwood stepped away from Graves, his expression shifting from confidence to damage control. Marshal Stevens, arrest that man for threatening a federal operation. But the federal marshals hesitated. They had heard Graves confess to murder, and even bought. Loyalty had limits when faced with such blatant criminality. Anna seized the moment of uncertainty. Marshal Stevens, I have documented evidence that Mr. Blackwood conspired with Sheriff Graves to defraud property owners through illegal land seizures. She held up the correspondence Morrison had provided, reading key passages aloud. Each letter detailed payments to Graves for clearing out property owners ahead of railroad development. The evidence was damning and undeniable. Marshal Stevens examined the documents with growing concern. His orders from Washington had mentioned railroad development, but nothing about conspiracy or murder. The situation had spiraled far beyond his mandate. Mr. Blackwood, these letters bear your signature and company seal. Private business communications taken through illegal search. Deputy Morrison seized them as evidence of ongoing criminal activity. Anna interjected. Local law enforcement has jurisdiction over murder investigations. The legal argument trapped Blackwood in bureaucratic complexity. Federal authority couldn't override local murder investigations, especially with such compelling evidence of corruption. Graves made a desperate attempt to regain control. All of you are interfering with legitimate federal business. Stand down immediately. You confess to murder, Morrison replied steadily. You're under arrest. The former sheriff's hand moved toward his weapon, but Zeke stepped behind him with surprising speed for such a large man. Other townspeople surrounded Graves, making resistance impossible. Margaret Chen emerged from the crowd carrying a rope. We should handle this ourselves. Anna quickly intervened. No, he gets a proper trial. Justice through law, not vigilante action. Her words carried moral authority that resonated with the crowd. Even in their anger, the townspeople recognized the importance of legitimate legal process. Marshal Stevens faced an impossible situation. His orders required supporting the railroad development, but the evidence of corruption was overwhelming. More importantly, his federal marshals were clearly uncomfortable with their position. Miss Sinclair, what exactly are you proposing? Anna opened her portfolio and pulled out carefully prepared legal documents. I'm filing formal complaints with territorial authorities, charging Sheriff Graves with murder and conspiracy. I'm also requesting federal investigation of railroad company bribery of local officials. You can't file federal complaints from a frontier town. I can file them with any sworn federal officer present during the commission of crimes. The legal trap snapped shut around Marshal Stevens. Anna had maneuvered him into a position where refusing her complaints would make him complicit in the cover-up. Blackwood realized his carefully constructed plan was collapsing. Marshal Stevens, I remind you that railroad development serves vital national interests. So does preventing murder and fraud, Anna replied. Stevens studied the evidence one final time, then made his decision. I'm accepting Miss Sinclair's formal complaints and ordering a federal investigation of all parties involved. The crowd erupted in cheers as justice finally prevailed. Graves slumped in defeat, realizing his empire of corruption had crumbled completely. Anna felt tears threatening, but maintained her composure. Marshal Stevens, I also request that all fraudulent land sales be nullified and rightful ownership restored to legal claimants. That will require extensive review of property records. I have complete documentation ready for territorial examination. Anna had spent weeks preparing for this moment, organizing every piece of evidence into legally admissible form. Her father's murder would not be in vain. Within hours, legitimate federal investigators arrived from the territorial capital. Anna's carefully preserved evidence provided the foundation for prosecuting the entire conspiracy. Graves and Blackwood were arrested on multiple charges of fraud, bribery, and murder. The investigation revealed the scope of corruption reaching far beyond Peace Bluff. Blackwood's railroad company had used similar tactics across 3 territories, displacing hundreds of families through illegal land seizures. Anna testified before federal prosecutors, her legal knowledge proving invaluable in building airtight cases against the conspirators. The Chicago attorney who had employed her would have been proud of her courtroom presence. As the legal proceedings continued, Anna established Peace Bluff's first legal aid office in her former room at Whitley's Inn. The single bed was replaced with a proper desk, but she kept it as a reminder of humble beginnings. Families who had lost their land to fraudulent sales received full restitution. The Martinez, Henderson, and Chen families got clear title to their property. Pete Miller's testimony helped identify the exact location of Isaiah Fletcher's grave, allowing Anna to give her father a proper burial. Zeke became Anna's business partner, helping families navigate complex property disputes and federal regulations. His knowledge of local conditions complemented her legal expertise perfectly. Deputy Morrison was elected sheriff by unanimous town vote, establishing honest law enforcement after years of corruption. His first official act was commissioning Anna as the town's legal advocate, giving her authority to represent citizens in territorial courts. Thomas Whitley transformed his inn into a proper boarding house for families seeking legal assistance. The room where Anna had made her stand became known throughout the territory as the place where justice prevailed over corruption. Margaret Chen expanded her store into a community meeting hall where citizens could gather to discuss legal matters and civic issues. The Chinese immigrant who had once feared speaking out became a vocal advocate for immigrant rights. Peace Bluff grew from a dying frontier town into a thriving community built on legal protection and inclusive governance. Anna's victory had created something her father could never have imagined when he first filed his land claim. Years later, when new travelers arrived seeking justice or fleeing corruption, they found welcome in Peace Bluff. Anna Sinclair, the woman who had once been told there was only one bed, now provided hope and legal representation to anyone who needed it. The sign outside her office read simply, "Peace Bluff Legal Aid, Justice for All." Below it, in smaller letters, founded in memory of Isaiah Fletcher, who died defending the rights of honest people. Anna had kept her promise to her father. Justice had been served through law, dignity, and the power of truth.